What's up, guys, and welcome back to Drew Reviews. You know, with summertime here, it's a great time to talk about action movies. And today, you're the disease, and he's the cure. It's 1986's Cobra, next on Drew Reviews. So Cobra was a movie that I didn't have around a lot when I was a kid, so I didn't actually see this movie until my 30s, a few years ago. And, judging by the poster, I'll put it up here, it always reminded me of like a Terminator ripoff with the gun with the laser sighting and the pose that he's in. But it turns out that's not the case at all. This is a very good police action slasher type film, and I want to get into it right now. So in the opening scene, we establish the character of Marion Cobretti, aka Cobra, and there's this great scene at the supermarket where this guy comes in all strung out with a shotgun and holds everyone hostage and murders a few people. And Cobra, who's a member of the zombie squad, comes in and does things his way. There's this great line where the guy's like, "Man, I've got a bomb. I'll blow everyone up." Cobra's got his gun drawn on him. He's like, "Go ahead. I don't shop here." Just great stuff. And I just want to mention in these scenes the product placement. There is Pepsi signs and Coors Light signs all over this thing, all over the movie, actually. I counted like, I don't know, half a dozen different Pepsi signs and two or three different Coors Light signs just littered throughout the movie. So now that I've kind of ruined that for you, you'll probably see them whenever you watch this thing. But after that opening sequence, we get introduced to the main plot of the story, and that's that there's this character named the Night Slasher, played by, I believe his name is Brian Thompson, and he has this cult group, and in the last 30 days, they've killed 16 people. And shortly after that supermarket scene, he gets another one. And there's a supermodel, I believe her last name was Knudsen in the movie, played by Brigitte Nelson, who, of course, would go on later in production and marry Sylvester Stallone. That's kind of an interesting fact. She witnesses these guys standing over this body post-murder in this underpass, which was basically the Terminator underpass, and the underpass in The Hidden and Black Moon Rising. It was used in a lot of movies in the 80s. And she kind of comes up on the aftermath of this murder. And so they go after her, and that's where the story kind of goes to another level. You've got Cobra and his partner, Gonzalez, trying to protect her from the Night Slasher and his cult. And it's just a lot of fun. Across the runtime of this movie, the Night Slasher goes after her in the hospital. They end up trying to get out of town. They attack them in this little cottage. There's a scene in the steel plant, with like molten steel, kind of like in Terminator 2, but preceding it by 5 years, where the movie finally climactically ends. And that's kind of a neat scene. But that's pretty much Cobra. Cobretti and Gonzalez are trying to keep the Night Slasher and his goons from killing her before she can identify them. Several years ago I saw this movie, and I thought, well, that was an all right movie. I kind of enjoyed it. And then last week, I backed myself into a corner when me and my friend Trevor were doing our review for Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, and I said, I'm going to do Cobra next, thinking it was on Tubi or something like that. I was like, oh crap, it's not on here. So I actually had to order the movie, and I watched it a couple nights in a row just in preparation for this. And this movie is a whole lot better than what I remembered a few years ago. This movie it's not great, but it's a solid action flick from the mid 80s. And I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So as far as things I liked about the movie, that opening scene in the grocery store is really good, and it would be copied later in like Steven Seagal's Hard to Kill. There's a scene in the second act of the movie where they're trying to get away from the Night Slasher. Actually, the Night Slasher's in front of them on the highway, and he's chasing them, and his goons are behind him, and so he's sandwiched there. And there's some great action in that scene where they're driving through this parking garage, and they're on two different levels, and the bad guys come out, and he takes that 50s car and just goes out and launches it, and it's an amazing stunt. The scene in the hospital is pretty intense. They figure out early on there's somebody in the police department who's turned against them and telling the Night Slasher, where they are, because Cobretti leaves, and then Gonzalez ends up getting a call from Cobretti and leaves too, and so there's no one there watching Knudsen. And the Night Stalker comes in posing as a janitor trying to kill her. And it kind of reminds me almost of like Halloween 2, wherever they're in this dark hospital after hours. That whole scene is really good. I really like the vibe of this movie. It's got that action thing, but it's also a slasher at the same time, and it's lit pretty dark in some places. It reminds me a lot of like 10 to Midnight with Charles Bronson, which I've also reviewed on this channel. I might put it up here to click on when we're done. The whole last act of the movie, where they're in that safe house and the bad guys come in with machine guns and they burn the place up and they're chasing them down the highway. There's some great stunts there with some motorcycle guys, and then the finale in that steel mill is really good. That laser gun wasn't just for the poster. He actually used it in that final fight. He used it to actually set up some guys for a few kills. So that was really interesting how he not only used it as a weapon, but he used it as a decoy. Brigitte Nelson is okay in this movie. She didn't detract from the movie too much for me, other than the fact that I know she's short haired and she wears this wig, and I don't know if it just doesn't look quite right on her, but I don't know. It was okay. But I like that scene where they got that song "Angel in the City" going, and she's doing her model photo shoot around the robots and everything. It looks very like 1920s Metropolis looking, and that's kind of a cool shot. There's another cool shot early on when they're having issues catching the night slasher, and he's just taking out more and more people, and they're downtown somewhere, and it's kind of like that scene I was talking about from My Come in Peace, where they're shooting the skyscrapers, but they're shooting it from underneath the actors, and so you see the skyline, and I love that shot. I told my wife when we were watching this, that's just a gorgeous shot. I really like the character of Gonzalez, the partner. I was watching this movie and I was like, I've seen him somewhere. And I did a little research, and he was actually Chico in the original Dirty Harry. And if you watched Seinfeld in the 90s, he was Poppy, the pizza maker who didn't wash his hands. And so uh, I thought that was pretty cool. He's an actor who transcended generations. And unlike a lot of supporting characters, they give him a little bit to do, being a garbage belly, a junk food junkie, as he says in the movie. And so I like that character quite a bit. The character of Cobra, played by Stallone, is okay. It's not one of his more iconic characters, but it's all right for what it is. I like the soundtrack in this movie for the most part. A lot of really good 80s sounding stuff. It sounds like a lot of, even though Stan Bush isn't on this soundtrack, it sounds like something Stan Bush would do. Jean Beauvoir, I believe, who was in the Plasmatics, did a song. Like I said, that Angel in the City is a really good song. The only time where I have issue with the music is in the credits. And I'll get into the things I don't like now. You've got this song that sounds like it's a Bruce Springsteen Glory Days reject. It's just awful as they're riding off on a motorcycle after this just hellacious fight. There's this just happy rock song, and it doesn't fit the movie whatsoever. You needed something a little more hard driving. There's a scene later on in the movie where they go to this diner, and Brigitte Nelson's character gets these French fries, and this scene grossed me out so bad. It, if you watch this movie, I actually took my stopwatch out on my phone and timed it. She pours ketchup on these French fries for 29 seconds. I almost got sick watching this scene. And of course, Stallone comes over, hey, yo, you better get a life preserver because those fries are drowning. And, at least there was a good joke made out of it, I guess. But whoever wrote that scene, I just wanted to tell you straight up, you're sick. I like the character of the night slasher played by Thompson, but he's got this sidekick character who's also a policeman, this female cop, and she's his informant from the inside, and her character isn't given much to do, and I felt like it was kind of wasted. So there's this scene just before the final fight between Thompson and Stallone, where Thompson's character calls Stallone pig as he spits water. I believe it was 9 times. If you make a drinking game out of it, originally I thought it was 13 times, but after a while, it's hard to tell. Oops. So before I rate Cobra, there's a funny little story about it. Stallone was originally going to be the lead in Beverly Hills Cop, but he wanted to make it more of an action thing, and they wanted kind of more of a comedy thing. And so Eddie Murphy ended up on the project, and they got what they wanted. So Stallone took a lot of the action pieces he was going to use in that movie and put him in Cobra. I thought that was kind of cool. Being somewhat of a musician, I think that's pretty cool. You've got people who have parts of a song that they won't use for years and years until they find the right piece to put it with. And so it seems like that's what happened here. So as far as where I would rate Cobra, it's a pretty good mid-level action flick. I think I'm going to go 6.8. It's a lot of fun. It never takes itself just too seriously. It's a quick hour and 24 minutes. You're in and out. It's not First Blood and it's not Rocky. But Stallone has a lot of these movies here in the middle that are really good, like this and Cliffhanger. And then he has a lot that a lot of people don't know about. Like, he's got this movie from 1978 called Fist, Federation of Interstate Truckers, and that's a really good movie where he doesn't play a tough guy. He's got a movie called Nighthawks with Rutger Hauer that I think is just phenomenal. Kind of reminds me of this movie a little bit, just a cop chasing down a killer. So definitely check those out. I have Nighthawks. I'll probably review it at some point on this channel. So guys, thank you for watching the video, especially the ones of you who stuck it out all the way to the end. I appreciate every single one of you guys. The channel keeps growing. Somehow you guys want to see what I have to say about these things, so I really appreciate that. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. Leave me a comment down in the comments section. Give me your favorite Cobra quote from this movie if you've seen it. Let me know what you think about the film. And next up, I'm going to have a couple different things going on. I'm going to do Sleepaway Camp 2 because that plays pretty high on a poll. And then I've got another Ask Drew coming. I've asked you guys for some questions, and you guys just sent them pouring in. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Be looking for those. As always, I'm Andrew, and I'll see you down the line. Can you hear these rejects fighting over here? Come on, people. It's a family park, not a Quentin Tarantino movie. But in all seriousness, it was 9 times. For real, dude, who comes to a park at 9 o'clock in the morning to fight?